and welcome back to our module. Today, as we study topic 2, let's do a quick revision of what we studied in our topic 1 about the environment and its basic components. Environment, as we studied, is everything that surrounds us. The need to study the environment is important because of the impact that human activities have on the environment, the challenges that we are facing, and how we can overcome the same. Today, let's study about part of the environment, the ecosystems, its structure, its function, and its types. Like I discussed before in our topic number 1, ecosystem, like you live at your home with your parents, your siblings, your grandparents, your pets, the air that you are breathing from your fan, the air conditioner, the water that you are drinking from your aqua purifier, everything that's in your home is your home ecosystem. Similarly, on a larger scale, there's a bigger ecosystem at play at every nook and cranny. That's called the ecosystem. We shall be covering the structure of ecosystem, that is what comprises the ecosystem, and the function, that is what roles do these interaction between different components, the structural components give rise to certain interactions. What are the functions of those interactions? Now, nothing in this universe, nothing in this nature happens for any lack of purpose. The little to little things that we see, the water cycle, the evaporation that takes place from the rivers, and the rain that happens, to the plants that are fixing oxygen and carbon dioxide in the environment, all these things have purpose to play. What is that purpose that they are playing is the function of every little ecosystem. We shall also be studying the types of ecosystem, whether they are aquatic ecosystems of fishes, whales, planktons and water, or terrestrial ecosystems on the land. Let's begin with ecosystem in a general way. An ecosystem is a structural and functional unit of ecology where the living organisms interact with each other and the surroundings of the environment. In other words, an ecosystem is a chain of interaction between organisms and their environment. Now, let's say you're sitting at home. Do you keep silent and sit in your room all the day? No. You interact with your parents, you interact with your siblings, you interact with your pets, you read books, you drink water, you eat food. And even if you don't interact or do any of these things, you're still breathing. And hence, you're interacting with the environment. You are taking in the oxygen, well, you're taking in the air, and you're giving out carbon dioxide. That process is also an interaction. The term ecosystem could be an important question for your MCQs. The term ecosystem was first coined by A.G. Tansley, who was a botanist in 1935. Who is a botanist? Would be an interesting question to ponder over. And is a botanist and a zoologist the same professionals? Well, we shall delve on that later. Let's come to what is an ecosystem structurally and functionally. Structurally, an ecosystem is something that it is composed of. Structure of an ecosystem could be abiotic or biotic. Like we studied in our previous topic, biotic means anything living and abiotic is anything not living. So the abiotic components of an ecosystem could be physical, could be chemical. The structural part of the ecosystem comprises of abiotic components and the biotic components. We studied about what is abiotic and biotic in our previous topic. All living things comprise of the biotic components and all the non-living things form a part of the abiotic component. We shall be studying these components in detail today. The functional aspect of ecosystem. Now, as we discussed, what functions do these interactions between abiotic and biotic components or other organisms amongst themselves? What is the function? The functions could be listed in a food chain. We all have studied what is a food chain. A mouse eats grass, the cat eats the mouse, and a bigger animal might eat the cat. Food chain. Food web. When many food chains get intermixed with each other, becomes a food web. Energy flow. When organisms from a lower level go from an upper level, these energy flows happen. The energy flow charts happen. Energy is transferred from one organism to another is energy flow. Nutrient cycling, nitrogen fixing, sulfur cycle, phosphorus cycle, carbon cycle, oxygen cycle. All these nutrients also cycle in the environment based on these interactions. And then we shall also be studying ecological pyramids. What would be an ecological pyramid? It's a very interesting topic that we shall be studying today. Firstly, let's study about the structural part of ecosystem, the abiotic and biotic components. The biotic components primarily constitute of the producers, the plants, the autotrophs, the ones that produce food with the process of photosynthesis, respiration, the plants that make fruits, the plants that make vegetables, the plants that make oxygen are the producers and the autotrophs. The examples could be from as simple as a thing like grass to big trees, mango trees. Consumers. Consumers could be of three different types: primary consumers, secondary consumers, and tertiary consumers, depending on what such a consumer consumes. If the consumer is consuming merely plants, it's called a herbivore, like a cow. If it's a secondary, it could not be consuming only the green grass but could also be thriving on other components. It's called a primary carnivore, like a dog. And tertiary, the secondary carnivores, the ones that solely rely on flesh and blood, like lions. And then comes the decomposers, often ignored because of their tiny size. Decomposers form a very important part of the environment. They are responsible for everything that's buried deep inside the earth and replenishing the soil at things that we cannot even imagine. We can see in this picture that the producer, the tree, is creating oxygen. How is it creating oxygen? With a simple process of photosynthesis. How is it using this oxygen? It's using the sun's energy. And what is this tree producing in return? It's producing carbon dioxide. And where is this carbon dioxide going? It's being consumed by these consumers. Here's the tiny little decomposer that we were talking about. The worms inside the soil who are fixing the soil for the producing trees, who will also be responsible for when this tiny squirrel dies, its decay will be done because of these decomposers. And what's happening on the left is a simple cycle known as the water cycle. All of these are the functional aspects which are being taken place by the structural units of an ecosystem. The tree here is a structural unit. The fox here is a structural unit. The squirrel here is a structural unit. The water is a structural unit. It's an abiotic component. And what's present everywhere over here, which we cannot see, is the air, is also a part of the abiotic component. Coming next to the abiotic components now. As I told you earlier, abiotic components are the non-living components of an ecosystem. It includes air, water, soil, minerals, sunlight, the temperature, the nutrients, the wind, the altitude, the turbidity. Now, what is turbidity? I'm sure we all know what is air, water, and soil, as we saw over here. Air, water, soil, minerals that are present in the soil being created by the decomposers, the sunlight that we are taking from the sun, the temperature that the sun is giving, the nutrients that are again present in the soil, the air, the wind, the altitude. What's turbidity? When in the atmosphere, let's say this is an atmospheric unit, a part of the room, let's say. So when you turn on the AC of your room, what happens is it gives out cool air. When the air gets cool, the turbidity changes. So the change in the pressure of the air, the change in the components of the air is the turbidity. We can see that because of the pollution today, so many particles are being suspended in the atmosphere, due to which the turbidity is increasing. And when the turbidity increases, it becomes difficult for the leaves to soak in oxygen and do photosynthesis. So all these factors help in the plant's photosynthesis, and all of these things affect the environmental interactions. Coming next to biotic components. Producers, the plants. Consumers, the heterotrophs that depend on other organisms for food. Now these consumers could be primary, secondary, tertiary, and then decomposers, the fungi and the bacteria. We also call them the saprophytes. They directly thrive on the dead and decaying organic matter. Like I said, when this little squirrel dies, it will be decayed in the soil, which will be done by the fungi and bacteria. They thrive on these. The decomposers are essential for the ecosystem as they help in recycling the nutrients that are reused by plants. So when this little squirrel dies, the decomposers will decompose its body into what it was made of. Our bodies are made up of atoms, and what atoms is it made up of? It's made up of carbon, it's made up of nitrogen, it's made of sulfur, it's made of oxygen, it's made of phosphorus. This is all what will be decomposed back into, and this is what will the tree use again for its processes. So coming back to a little recap of the structural units, the abiotic components, the air, water, soil, minerals, sun energy, and the biotic components, the tree, the producer, the consumer, and the decomposer. Coming next to the functions of the ecosystem. The functions of the ecosystem are as follows. Now, what's the purpose of what we read, the food chain, the food web, the pyramids, the energy flows? What's the purpose of all these processes? The purpose is to regulate the essential ecological processes and support life system and render stability. All these functions of the food chain, food web, pyramids, energy flows, nutrient recycling, very important. Nutrient recycling. All this is very important to make these ecological processes continuously going. What if the plants stop doing photosynthesis? Do you think you and I can breathe? Of course not. So to support life, to render stability in ecosystems, all these processes are very essential. The ecosystem functionally is also responsible for the cycling of nutrients between abiotic and biotic components. It maintains a balance among the various trophic levels, the producer, the consumer, the decomposer. It cycles the minerals through the biosphere. The biosphere is the living biome, the earth, the living biome. The abiotic components help in the synthesis of organic components that involve the exchange of energy. The functional units of an ecosystem are, again, energy flow, the topics that we studied. What is energy flow? Energy flow is the sequential process through which energy flows from one trophic level to another. Now we studied that the plant is producing the food, the little squirrel, the primary consumer, is eating it, and then there was a fox, was a secondary consumer, I'm going to write this as F, the fox, or SC, the secondary consumer. Now what happens when this squirrel will eat this plant? Of course, the energy that is stored in this plant is going to go to the squirrel. And when the fox eats this squirrel, the energy is going to transfer into the fox. And when the fox dies, that energy is going to go back into the soil and those nutrients will be recycled. So that's nutrient cycling. And the energy that is flowing from one trophic level to another is the energy flow. And what's the starting point of this energy flow? How is this plant making its food? From the sun. The solar energy is the primary source of everything. The energy that is captured from the sun, the solar energy. We'll come to solar energy also. It's one of the most vital forms of energies we have. The energy from the sun flows to producers and then to consumers and then to the decomposers and finally back to the environment. What's decomposition? We have studied the process of breakdown of the dead organic material. The topsoil, where that squirrel was present, the topsoil is the major site for decomposition. The bacteria and fungi are not present in skin deep of the earth. They are present on somewhere superficially. The nutrient cycling. In an ecosystem, nutrients are consumed and recycled back in various forms for utilization for various organisms. Coming to our last topic in this module is the type of ecosystem. So in our topic 2 today of ecosystem, this is the last subtopic we have, the types of ecosystem. Now, not every ecosystem is the same, just like not every house is the same. You have a different house, your friends have a different house, the Prime Minister has altogether a different house, the US President has an even different house. So similarly, where these organisms live will also have a different ecosystem. An ecosystem can be as small as an oasis in a desert. When there's a big desert, let's say this is the big desert, and there's a tiny pond of water, this little thing is called an oasis. An oasis could be also an ecosystem or could be as big as the ocean, which spans on thousands of miles, the Indian Ocean, the Pacific Ocean. So this could be the size, but the types are terrestrial ecosystem and aquatic ecosystem. Terrestrial means land, and aquatic, as the term suggests, and so does the picture, means water. Terrestrial ecosystems are again of different types. Not every land terrain is the same. Even in India, we can see we have deserts, we have mountains, we have beaches, we have so many different types of ecosystems on the land itself. So terrestrial ecosystems depend on the geological zones. The geography of a place will affect what type of ecosystem we have. So the first is a forest ecosystem. It consists of several plants, particularly trees, animals and microorganisms that live in coordination with the abiotic factors, the air, water, nutrients of the environment. A grassland ecosystem is a vegetation dominated by grasses and herbs. An example could be the savanna grasslands, and of a forest could be, well, name a forest for me. Tundra, where we find ice. Another type is the taiga. Here we find permafrost. And then we have deserts. So these are the different types of ecosystems we have on the land. And then coming on ecosystems of water. Freshwater ecosystem. The freshwater ecosystem is an aquatic ecosystem which includes lakes, ponds, rivers, streams, wetlands. What differentiates between a freshwater and a marine ecosystem is a good question. So in freshwater, there's no salt, as contrast to a marine ecosystem where there's more salt and a greater biodiversity. So this is the main difference between a freshwater ecosystem, as we can see here. This could be a pond, a lake, a river, but here we can have a sea, an ocean. These are salty and have more life because salt is again a nutrient, and this nutrient will support a greater biodiversity. So here we end our topic 2 of ecosystems. Let's take a quick recap of what an ecosystem is. Ecosystem is the structural and functional unit of ecology, where there are all things present, biotic, abiotic, and there's a lot of interaction happening between them. Interaction happening between them, the word them is the structural unit, and the word interaction is the functional unit. We have studied all the components, abiotic and biotic. We have studied the functional part of it as to what happens with these interactions. We shall definitely be studying food chain, food web, food pyramids, energy charts, everything in our next topic. For now, let's sink this in, and I'll see you for the next topic. Thank you.